Welcome to Behind the Point. I'm Pastor Jeff, and I'm here with Pastor Josue.
Good morning.
We had a busy weekend, a good
busy.
weekend.
Very busy.
Share some highlights. Do you remember anything?
What specifically about?
Well, what did you do?
Just my weekend, what I did this week? Okay.
We had some shared experiences, I guess.
Yeah, we did. Well, Friday was my brother-in-law's birthday party. I went to my brother-in-law's birthday party. He turned 40.
Nice.
He's the youngest one in our little circle,
group,
our group. Yeah. So he just turned 40. That was fun. We went out to a restaurant in Redlands. Finney's, I think it's called. Never been there before, but it was good. I got a blackened shrimp tacos.
Nice.
They were delicious.
That sounds good.
And it was a tri-tip and a blackened shrimp.
Ooh.
So it was really good.
Surf and turf?
Kind of, yeah. Well, my buddy Nick, he got the shrimp ones and I got the tri-tip.
Yeah,
so I was like, here, you take one, I'll take one.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, they were really good. Anyways, after that, we went to, so our kids spent the night at my mother-in-law's so that we could go have dinner with them. Then after that, we went to my buddy Nick's house where we stayed there later, and then we started doing karaoke, which was a lot of fun. My cousin was there. Some of my sister's friends from the church were there. Obviously, my brother-in-law and Nick and Stephanie and myself. And but it was fun.
Do you do it too?
I did. Yeah, I did. And it was fun. We had a good. I was so embarrassed. I sang that Josh Turner song. Your Man is what it's called. Okay. Because the guy has like a really deep voice. Yeah. He's got a really deep voice, but it's not really deep. The one note that he hits is deep. And so everyone thinks like,
he's got
for us
right now?
No. But anyway, so they had me sing that one. It was a lot of fun though, but we had a really good time. And then Stephanie sang the Golden Girls theme song. So it was fun. But then we made a huge mistake in thinking, I don't know, maybe it was a crisis that my brother-in-law was turning 40 that Stephanie and I decided to try and reclaim our youth.
Yeah.
And we said, we're going to go to a movie. So, the truth is we were supposed to go the weekend before, but we couldn't because my daughter got sick. So we stayed home and we're like, well, we're going to be out in Redlands. Like, let's just go to a movie afterward. So we bought the tickets to go and see the Avatar movie, and it's the theater that has the screens around you as well, not just in front of you, and your seat moves. So anyways, we scheduled the movie, and the movie started at 11:15. So we're like 11:15 at night, yeah. And it's a 3.5 hour movie. Wow. So I was like, oh my gosh. And we were thinking like, no, we'll be hyped up enough from the night. Like, it'll be fun. We'll go. Then it turns out our movie was no longer in Redlands. They sent us out to Cinemark off of Renaissance in Rialto.
Okay.
So from Redlands, I'm driving at night at 11:30 at night, trying to get to the theater. I'm starting to get tired in the car. I'm like, babe, we're passing Riverside Avenue. Like, that's our exit. Like, should we just go home? You know? Anyways,
I couldn't do it.
We went to the movie and it was fun. We had a good time. I don't think the seats added anything to the movie because they rock and rumble and move around and stuff. In fact, it just rocked me to sleep. So, and so I dozed off, but not for like even more than a minute. It was like 5 seconds. I'm like, oh, my eyes are closed. You know, it's one of those things. Same thing happened with Stephanie. And the whole time we're in the movie, we're like, 2.5 hours left.
Oh man, that's
2
rough.
hours left, like the whole time. So, but anyways, we made it home, and I fell asleep probably about 4:15 or so, 4:30, and then I think we were up by about 8.
Ugh.
Had to go and get a
turn around.
I had to. Well, that's just the time I woke up. Like I was already up, but I realized I had a nail in my tire that morning, so I had to go and get my tire fixed. After that, I had to go out to San Bernardino to pick up my kids from my mother-in-law, get them home in time to get showered and dressed to then drive out to Moreno Valley. To go, that's where we met up there.
Birthday party
for Micah's birthday party.
Get
at
Air,
a jump place.
Park.
Get Air. That's right. I couldn't remember what it was called. Get Air.
I kept calling it Sky High. Carrie's like, that's not the name of it.
Wrong one. Yeah.
I just remember something about it.
Yeah.
Like,
but that was fun. We had spent a couple hours there and throwing kids into foam pits, and so that was fun. Yeah. After that,
I bounced. You didn't.
I didn't jump around too much. No, I was trying to find my kids.
I
didn't have.
I was following the little
socks.
kids around, and I'm jumping on the trampolines. And I jumped into the foam pit.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I know you kept trampling the kids in there. I was like, Jeff, what are you doing? No, I was kidding.
It was like those blow up kind of things.
Yeah,
and but it didn't have enough air in it, so everything kept like collapsing.
Oh yeah. There were a couple of them that were doing them. Yeah. They were weird.
I'm like, I think they need more air.
But anyways, we were there for a couple hours. And then after that, on my way home, I text Pam, Pastor Pam, and I said, hey, what's the address where the kids are at for youth camp, which was at Angeles Oaks. So I got home around 4:30, maybe 5. No, about 4:30,
Yeah.
4:45 or so. And then I dropped my kids off with my wife, and because she stayed home with our daughter who wasn't feeling too hot. And so I drove out to Angeles Oaks. It was an hour drive to get there. I stayed there with the youth at camp for about an hour and a half, maybe an hour, 45 minutes. And then I was like, it took me an hour to get here, so I need to make sure I stay.
Yeah.
But I stayed for dinner. It was good.
You
They
did
had
good.
nachos, yeah.
You have more endurance than me.
I know.
I could barely handle. It's back to the movie for a 7 or 8 o'clock movie. I'm like,
I know.
oh man, I don't know
Yeah.
if I can make it.
But then I
need more sleep, I guess, than you.
Drove home after that about an hour, and then wake up for church in the morning. And
Yeah, I was
Here
worried.
all day,
I was kind of
and-
worried about you the night before, like, because I knew you were so tired. I'm like,
Yeah.
I hope he's safe on the mountain. And
no, it's fine.
coming home, and then I was thinking you were just gonna be exhausted yesterday.
It was very
But you
pe-
did good. You
it was
had
very-
you
yeah.
still had a lot of energy.
It was a very peaceful drive, so it wasn't really exhausting. So
Yeah.
it felt good. It was comfy.
Good.
And then hung out with the kids for a minute, and then came home.
Nice. Very
It's
cool.
a long weekend.
Yeah, that is. That's a lot of stuff. Yeah, mine wasn't as busy.
Yeah.
I did some yard work. Josh helped me on Friday. We went to the trampoline park. I went to the men's breakfast. That was really nice.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you went to that.
But
How many guys did Gary say were there?
I think he said 89
Wow.
this morning.
That is an
Yeah,
incredible
so it was
group
good.
of
There's
guys.
some several men from other churches came too.
Cool.
So I think we had 5 churches represented, which was kind of cool.
Nice. Very good.
Because their theme this year is unity. So it's kind of neat that they just like a lot of people invited friends,
Yeah.
their connections, cousins, and stuff that came out too, which was
Cool. Very good.
Yeah, good times. So you started a new series on the book of Philippians. Someone in our staff earlier read Philippines.
Philippines.
They're like, what's this going to the Philippines? But the book of Philippians.
Damien. That's good.
And you talked about 3 characteristics of a joyful servant of Christ. And the book's about suffering and joy in the midst of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And but you talked about being a servant of God, focusing in on the first 11 verses, I
11
think,
verses,
of
yep.
chapter 1. Thinking about the word joy, is joy the same as happiness? And if not, what's the difference?
So people have made the case. I've heard people make this argument all the time that there is a difference between joy and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, and I'm not saying I'm 100% right on this. I'd be willing to change my mind on it. But I do think they are connected. I think they can be the same thing.
Yeah. Same with the word blessed.
Right.
Because some people translate like blessed is, blessed are the peacemakers. Some
Right.
translate happy are the peacemakers.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think they can be the same thing. I think joy can be an underlying foundation in our lives. We live our lives in the joy of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Am I always happy though? Is different.
Yeah.
Happiness can be circumstantial. Joy never is. That's the
Happiness
difference.
seems to often be a feeling.
Right. But
Right.
I still
Where
think
joy, again, to your point, is not
Yeah.
circumstantial.
I don't think that they are mutually exclusive
No.
from one. I think they are tied together.
Happiness is a complements joy
Correct.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before we get into how to serve joyfully, can you just describe just briefly what it means to be a servant of Christ? Because you talked about joyful servants.
Mm-hmm.
What is, before we get into the joyful aspect, what does it just generally mean to be a servant of Christ? What does that look like practically?
Well, if we look again at what we talked about, how Paul says Timothy and I, right, servants of Christ, we talked about what kind of servant he's talking about. That is someone who is totally dedicated, but willful dedication. And that I know you said to hold off on the joy part, but there's a joyful dedication in that as well.
Is what
that
you emphasized in the
correct,
message.
and that's what you want to do. It's
Yeah.
the kind of servanthood, the bond servant, that doulos again that we talked about, that you willingly make yourself the servant, which is the example Christ set for us. So
can you go a little bit further?
Yeah.
Like how do we serve him?
I think,
Like what does that look like in
so
action?
it goes with. I would say that I talked about this. I don't remember exactly where it was yesterday, but the idea that in everything that we do, we seek to honor the Lord. That He is always in our minds as I'm about to do this. How does this impact my testimony for the Lord? How am I honoring God with this? With my thoughts, with my actions, with my words?
Even if it's not related to what we would think of like church, I'm thinking about God, like in my work.
At work,
you know, you work as a janitor,
correct,
or you're a valet driver or something.
One of the kids from youth came up and talked to me yesterday, right after they had gotten back from camp, and he's asking me this questions like, I don't want to compromise in my faith. He says, he's like, how am I supposed to exist when my friends all want to do this, and that, and they want to treat people this way, and they want to talk a certain way. And I said, walk away from that. And I said, and if they ask you questions, let the testimony of your own life speak to that. You could be like, hey, listen, I don't want to be a part of that, or I don't think it's kind to say those things, or I don't think we should be treating so-and-so this way. You don't ever have to bring up the Bible. Yeah. You can just say that, and they're going to be like, why? Now's your opportunity to serve Christ in that manner and say, because I don't think it honors the Lord for me to treat my fellow human being this way, this image bearer of Christ in this capacity. You're serving the Lord in that capacity.
In integrity.
Right.
And
that's
what's right.
We're just talking about morality there. If we're talking about very practical ways, is go out and be the hands and feet of Jesus. Try and help someone who is in need. We've got our church in action they're not sitting there talking about Bible scripture all day long. They're packing boxes. They're organizing toys. They're, working with people in the store. They're helping people, all kinds of stuff. There is
sometimes
a time
it's our
for
words.
that.
It's encouraging.
Exactly.
People.
It's more than one thing.
Yeah.
It's living your life, whether it is on a public scale or a very private scale, always for the Lord in a manner that honors and glorifies the Lord.
Yeah. Is it doing something kind or helpful or to that other person that's serving 100%. The Lord as well, right? So your first point, so again, you gave the 3 characteristics of joyful servants. So the first one is that joyful servants of Christ consider and celebrate one another.
Yeah.
And you talked about how encouraging it is when people just randomly send you a text or call you to check in or how can I pray for you? Is there anyone that specifically comes to mind that has done that really well? Like just, or maybe even have an example of something someone said to you at a certain time. Does anything come up?
One of the people that comes to mind, this person has not done it specifically with me. Well, actually, that's probably a lie. They probably have. But I would think someone like Jerry Lakey.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry does a phenomenal job at it. He will come up to me. He's been out sick for a couple weeks now, probably a little bit longer, but he's been out sick. But he will come up to me and he'll say, hey, Pastor, did you notice that so-and-so isn't here? And he's thinking about that person. He's like, we need to reach out to them and make sure. And I'm like, yeah. And he'll reach out more often than not and just say, hey, just checking on you. You doing okay? Everything all right? Because you haven't seen him in a while. And that's an amazing thing to do. He'll do that. And then he'll check in with me every now and then. Hey, praying for you today. That kind of stuff. And that's always a very encouraging and uplifting thing when you receive that kind of information, or just to know that, man, like he is very much representing what the church should be doing, that the responsibility to check in on someone does not all fall on me. He, as a church member, and in fact, he's on our board, he's willing to call and check on individual people. That's one of the things that I have long wanted to implement. We picked this up at the Thrive Conference, actually, this idea of making sectional pastors. Like the people that
over
are staples.
In the church.
This person right here, Joe
Rows
is here.
1, 2, and 3.
Right there. Joe sits right there every Sunday at 9:15. I'm going to put him in charge of checking on the 10 people that sit around him. Like that is so important and it is so vital, which is why I had people turn around and ask the names, because it's like, we don't even know these people's names sometimes. And a lot of our people do, just to be fair. But it's a challenge. It should always be a little pebble in our shoe that just says, hey, you know what? I see this person every week and I don't know their name. I should ask them their name. It's a good way of doing that. But Jerry does that really, really well. I also think we did a really good job with this, and this not a credit to me. This is all a credit to Dane. During COVID, we printed our entire, Damien, do you remember this? We printed our entire database with thousands of names. Literally, I want to say there was about 4,000 names. And we split it up amongst our staff. And we said, call these people on your list and just check on them. You're just calling them to say, hey, we miss seeing you at church. We hope you're doing well. That did wonders for the church. It was just, that was such a phenomenal idea on Dane's part to just reach out. In fact, I don't even know if it was his, but it was under his leadership. And do you remember whose idea that was? I don't remember. I know we did it under Dane though. Yeah, we all got a big old stack of names that we had to call, and we had weeks to do it because we were all in lock-ins.
Right.
But I really enjoyed doing that because then we got to talk to people, and I know Leticia always said such good stuff about the conversation she had with people, and that one was really cool. But that's so important to our people when we check on them.
Yep.
And just personally, I'll say it again. It does my heart so good when people will check in on me. Because one of the things that people always think is like, well, he's the pastor, he's fine. Like, you don't even understand how overwhelming it can be sometimes. And just to get that one text message that says, hey, I'm thinking about you, praying about you today.
Yeah, man, it is sweet.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That means more to me than anything. So
we have a lot of very kind people who pray for us on a regular basis. We recognize that.
Yep.
I think of when you said Jerry at first, and I would agree. Jerry Lakey is awesome. Jerry, female Jerry Sanchez in our office. Yeah. She's so good at that too. She'll text me like if she didn't say goodbye because I'm in a meeting or on a phone call or something. I left for the day. Like, God bless you and your family, and I'm praying for you. I hope you have so she's
very
always
encouraging.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And she checks and just asks about us so often. Gary, another rhyming,
Gary,
who's over at Pastoral Care. He and there's handful of people I know that text a group of people every day a verse or some kind of like a prayer over them or something. There's a lady that's been doing that. Now I went and visited her mom, and now she just sends a little daily something.
Yeah.
And so, but very sweet people.
Jessica's really good with that also with the volunteers in the children's department to check in on them regularly. Tell them happy birthday. She's really good
it's
with
meaningful.
That.
When someone's thinking about me. That feels good.
Yeah.
Well, thinking about this area, so joyful servants of Christ, consider and celebrate one another. You mentioned a post that we had online of our center point by the numbers.
Yeah.
I think it was good. You clarified this wasn't about boasting, because some people may just see that and be like, "Oh, wow, like this church just cares about numbers, how big they are, or whatnot." But you emphasized it's celebrating because those are all individuals that are part of something else that
each
God's
one of
doing
those
in their
numbers
life,
has
right?
a story tied to it. Yeah.
I'm going to share the numbers just for those who missed it. Like I'm going to say what it, how many first-time visitors, etc. As I say each one, can you just tell me one thing about that you're celebrating? So as I share a number.
Okay.
What is one thing you celebrate with each of these? So the first one is we had 858 first-time visitors in 2025.
Well, okay, just one thing, or can I say two things?
Okay, that's fine.
Two things. Number one, that there's people who are still hungry and thirsty for the Lord. They are looking for a place to plug in to make that connection.
Yeah.
Number two, that we are still effective in our area. We are still fruitful in this valley that the Lord has assigned us, and we're making a difference. And to nearly 1,000 people, right? That's just absolutely amazing. Like, what a blessing to know that as old as our church is, we are still effective. Because we're following the Lord, and that the people who are out there who are hungry and thirsty looking for the Lord have come to us.
Yeah, we want people here, especially those that don't yet know Christ.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I would just say, add to that, it's really awesome knowing that so many of those were personal invites from our people.
Right.
They're experiencing something positive in the church. They want others to be part of that, whether a family member or a neighbor or someone they run into.
Those are probably the top three things, right? That we hear from people, how they come to the church is someone invited me.
Yeah, that's number one. I think across
the next one is
churches.
probably the website. They checked our website and they came across us. And the third would probably be, I've lived in this area and I see the building all the time, but I've never come by.
Yeah,
That's been a huge one.
Finally, something pushed them to come.
We just decided to come in. Yeah.
And now the podcast, of course, is
obviously the main reason.
Thank you for listening. Okay, how about this one? 76 baptisms. What do you celebrate?
I think that's the public confession. I think people are taking that next step enough to make it public. Our relationship with Christ is a very personal thing, but it's also a very communal thing, a very public thing that says that's done in the presence of the body, the entire church, and that we get to celebrate with you in that moment that you have died to your old self, you have risen with Christ through the resurrection that we have, the resurrection through the waters of baptism. Like that's to me is so encouraging just to see people who are taking that next step. Yes, you've committed your life to the Lord, but now you're going beyond that. Like I'm committed. This is a public sign of a transformed life.
That's awesome. Yeah. Lives transformed. Yeah. It's awesome. average weekly attendance, we had 1,429 was our average. Mm-hmm. What do you celebrate about that?
It's a church. It's a community of people who have a like-minded posture in their hearts to serve the Lord. And I mean, it's good that our numbers are continuing to increase. Probably about a year ago, we were averaging closer to 1,100 on Sundays.
Yeah.
And years before that, after COVID, we dropped down to what was it, Damien? Like 600 at some point on a weekend. And even then, that's still a high I think of from when Dane started, when there was 60 people in the church, right? Our highest that I've ever seen on an average, we've broken 2,200, but our average that we've seen was closer to 1,700. So that just tells me people are still coming back.
Yeah.
There is still more and more people. And what's more encouraging of all of that is these are brand new. We're not talking about church transfers. There's within church circles, there's lingo that is used to describe that you measure the growth of your church, and most churches tell you don't measure church transfers, which means I transferred from this church to that church. We're talking about first-time people who have never been to church. That's what we're seeing a lot.
And we obviously grow by both.
By both
There's
of them,
some people
obviously,
coming and stuff. We don't mean to steal from other churches unless that's something unhealthy.
Yeah,
that I'm aware of. We never want to ask someone, switch to us.
Right. Yeah, no, we've never done that.
Unless there's something it's clearly unbiblical in those church or real issue with leadership or something.
But that's encouraging to think. And admittedly, a good number of that is kids as well.
And that was the next one.
That's cool to see how.
Yeah, 311 average kids and youth. Mm-hmm. So that's
super encouraging. Not only is our church growing in size, the amount of people who show up, but our church is physically invested that now there's even children who are, we're seeing more and more kids as part of the church. That's so encouraging.
We have such major concerns about our culture and direction and stuff. Mm-hmm. But you think, here's the next generation that's being built up.
That's super cool.
And in the name of Christ. And their families are coming and bringing. So it's there's health in the families. And so it's cool to see all that.
Yeah.
Live streams, 424 average weekly live stream devices.
Mm-hmm. People don't want to miss a service.
Yeah.
Even if they're not here, they want to plug in to a certain extent and be part of that. And again, I hope that people aren't using it as just a background to breakfast or something. I hope that, it sounds weird to say, I hope they're sick, or something that they're staying home. But the main purpose for that is
we always prefer people in person as much as possible.
There's a reason for that, though. Yeah. It's not just that we need the bodies on campus. It's important that as Christians, we not stop gathering.
Yeah.
There needs to be that fellowship because that's where accountability happens. That's where reconciliation happens. That's where community happens. That's
something special in the room too, as we're together and worshiping that you can't totally capture.
Yeah. I'm glad that we get to minister, though, to people who are unfortunately sick, who are traveling, bedridden, who are on vacations, who are out of town for work.
Yes.
I'm glad we still get to minister them.
Absolutely.
100%.
Last one is just our average podcast listeners, 238 this first year. So we're almost really at our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah. When did we start that again?
I think
February.
You just
sent us a text last week. It's February 15th or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's cool. 200 and. You said how many?
238.
238, yeah. That's good. Cool.
So thank you for listening.
100 of those are me.
Why do we care about the podcast? Why do you care about the podcast?
I love this part of it, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from people who say, oh, thanks so much for elaborating on X, Y, and Z, whatever it was that we got to talk about. Plus, it's probably a selfish reason, but I love that I get to share a little bit more beyond just the one line point that we share on Sunday. We get to go beyond that. We get to go so much deeper and explain hey, these are all the things I didn't get to talk about. These are parts that were so important. And so while they kind of hide behind the scenes a little bit, they're still important to share. So it's fun that we get to do that here and kind of geek out a little bit.
Yeah.
That's always really encouraging and fun for me.
Thank you for sharing those things. We care about every person behind those numbers.
Absolutely. Every single one.
The second thing is your second point was joyful servants of Christ carry one another.
Mm-hmm.
I like how you said that we can only do this because of the agape love of Christ. Can you just briefly share what is agape? What does that phrase mean? It's a Greek word.
Sacrificial. It speaks to the sacrificial love of God. There's multiple facets that come to the word love in the Greek.
But we have one word, they have multiple different ways of.
The one specifically that is used to describe Jesus and what he did for us is agape love, which was sacrificial. He gave up ultimately his life for us. So it's the way we can even dare to do that is only because of him.
Yeah, we carry others because of how he's carried us.
The way he carried us, yep.
I'm very proud of you for learning something about sports.
Oh, gosh.
So
I was like, why? What did I say?
No, well, yeah. Well, we made, maybe not everyone picked up on the humor behind it when you said my goal this year is to learn about sports, because it's because you literally know.
I know
nothing.
It sounds like I'm making it up. Like Lauren, our guitarist, was teasing me. He's like, now you're just being sick. I'm like, I know nothing, dude. You don't understand.
And he gets a lot of grief from our staff and some friends in his life and stuff.
All the time.
I'm not a big sports guy either, but I know a little bit more.
You know a lot more. You tried to teach me all about baseball yesterday in the morning.
I watched The Sandlot. I watched all these, Remember the Titans and all these things. But it was funny because yesterday in the morning, because you talked to someone on staff. I don't know if it was Mike. Okay, Mike, our young adults director, and you were saying, I need an illustration. I need a sport that I could do this week. And you did some illustration about baseball and the catcher. But then you came to me, this is at 7 a.m. on the morning you're preaching in an hour or whatever. And you're like, how do I fit this illustration in? And we ended up having a 10-minute conversation about
10 minutes? It was like 20 minutes. You tried to teach me the whole sport of baseball.
Okay. Well, I was trying to be charitable. But it was funny. You're like, what are these things? Like, you cross this plate. What's a plate? But your illustration, you did good. Because you talked about the catcher, your illustration about it was tied to carrying one another. And the catcher, if anyone's familiar with the sport, is they're taking all the fastballs. You said, you learned it was some of these are 100 mile per hour or more fastballs. So they're receiving these, like they're taking the punches almost. They're giving some direction, and then they literally at times go and give encouragement. They leave the mound, that's the dirt, and they go to the pitching mound to encourage that person. And so I like that you use that illustration.
Do you remember, Damien, do you know the name of the baseball player that they were talking about that hit the bird? Great big tall guy, 6'10".
I know who it is.
It was some.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was fun. Because Gordon is the one who texted me that, our electric guitarist. He's in fact Dane's son-in-law.
After 8 a.m.
After 8 a.m. he sent me the message. He's like, I'm so proud of you that you're learning sports. But he sent me the thing about, it was like 20 or 30 years ago. However, Randy Johnson, that's his name. That he was throwing this pitch,
fastball,
but apparently the guy's left-handed too, and he threw it so fast, and a bird happened to fly by right as it was going, and and then all these people came up and showed me after, have you seen the video? And they showed me the video. This poor little bird, it just
it explodes.
What are the odds? Has that ever happened?
No.
Yeah. What are the odds?
Damien said a 1 in trillion chance.
That is absolutely incredible. But I was blown away by it. I honestly did not know. I thought you were lying. Remember, even yesterday in the morning, when you said 100 miles, I was like, "There's no way."
Yeah.
And you looked it up, and it was like
average is 94 to 95 miles per hour.
That's just insane. Yeah.
So you think how dangerous? You're like, that's why they wear those helmets.
I didn't even know. I was like, oh, is that because you were telling me that? I said, why? What if
the catcher and the umpire wear masks?
That's right,
to protect them and padding and stuff.
And then I realized that's what the helmet is for. That has the part that covers it. I'm like, oh, I get it now. I'd have never known.
Most of the time they're able to step back, but sometimes they do take a hit. So
and they'll even wear like just a piece,
elbow pads and arm pads
just to protect that. That's crazy.
I mean, it could do major damage if not kill someone.
Wow.
A direct hit. Do you have any other baseball analogies?
No, I think I pretty much hit a home run with that one.
Oh, that was good. Wrong sport.
I don't know. No, I thought of that one. You made it all the way around. Yeah.
Do you know what a grand slam is? I thought it'd be funny to ask you a couple of these.
What's do. That's 2 sausage, bacon, and a hamburger.
Very good. The grand slam breakfast. That's good. What is the name? What do you think a good name would be for a position? There's someone on the field in the infield, so between
I don't know
second
what an
and third
infield
base.
is.
Okay.
Okay.
There's
base,
second
First
base,
is
third
a-
base.
baseman.
Who would you put between a second base and a third base?
What would you call him?
1.5. I don't know. What
It's a short. This one's tough. I'm just curious what you would call
between?
him,
You're saying what would I call the person
There's
between
not
first?
a logical name, really. I mean, it kind of makes sense
Because
if you
first base
explain
is not home base, right? It's the first one you come to.
Yeah,
So
you
1,
go
2,
first.
and 3.
Yeah.
So between 1 and 2,
it. Between 2 and 3.
between 2
Second
and 3.
third.
Oh, 2 and 2.5.
No, that's a good guess though. But it's shortstop.
A 2.5 man.
Yeah, it's called a shortstop. Yeah,
Why is it called a shortstop?
Damian.
Short.
Yeah.
See,
They're
you guys
protecting
don't
the
even
field.
know. Don't be giving me a hard time. You don't even know.
Plays a short field.
No, don't.
Damian's gonna go into the
I don't
science
want
of
to
it.
hear it anymore. I don't
What
wanna
is
hear it.
a
You guys
foul
don't even
ball?
know. A ball that smells, or no? I imagine it goes out of the
Out
playing
of bounds,
field,
yeah,
right?
That's
Okay.
good. All right, that's it. I won't teach you.
Okay. All right.
Until next week. What are
Thank
you doing
though.
next week?
Thank you.
Football,
No,
basketball?
I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. I'm going to try and stick with one sport. But I apparently picked the wrong sport too, because apparently we're in a different sport season right now. What are we in?
Football.
Football?
Football's
Should I have said
wrapping
football?
Up like playoffs
Playoff
and
football.
yeah.
I don't know what that
Hockey.
means.
It's like hockey and basketball.
yeah.
All right. I'm bored of this conversation. Next.
Yeah. All right. We'll move forward. Anyways.
Shortstop because they're
It's a
between the outfielders and the infield.
They're a shortstop
Between-
because they're between the outfield and the infield. Outfield is the grass area. Infield is where all the bases are.
The whole thing is grass, isn't it?
No, it's dirt.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. So there's a baseball
Learn something else,
diamond
yeah.
is the shape. and-
Track.
yeah.
But everything
So,
in between is grass,
and
isn't
basically,
it? Oh, okay.
like the bases and forward is the infield, and then
Oh, okay,
beyond the
that's helpful
bases
to
is
know.
the outfield.
Okay,
so
good.
You think about it.
That's
So,
an easy way to
yeah.
think of it. Okay, cool.
You gotta watch The Sandlot or some movie to learn baseball. Talking about more importantly, a more serious note though. So talking about carrying others, you asked us if we feel a love for people around us,
Mm-hmm.
and both inside and outside the church, right? And you kind of alluded to difficult people, right? that drive us nuts as we're driving, or some people in our lives. And you asked the challenging question: do we carry them in our hearts, or are they on our nerves? And I thought that was good. What if it's the latter? Is how can we change if we just really struggle to love certain people? Is there anything? So if I know it's like my thought about this person is more nerves than it is a heart thing, how do we make a change to actually get to the part of having a tenderness towards them, a love for them? Any tips?
Let me preface this by saying you helped me reform this point, because I originally had it worded as love one another. And based off of everything
I didn't
that I
want to
had,
do that. So I say, why
you
don't
said
change
this
the
is
point?
stupid. So no, you after reading everything that I had, you said it would almost sound better if you said carry one another.
Yeah.
So and I thought it worked even better. So I used that. So I'll say what I think is helpful and can be helpful in those circumstances is we often think you need to be lovable in order for me to love you. But that's not the model that Christ set for us.
Because his is unconditional.
It was while we were still sinners, right? While we were his enemy. So
not because we were worth loving,
Bingo.
but because he loved anyways.
correct.
Yeah.
So because he chose love first. He said, I will love you even though you're not unlovable. So the same principle applies here. We can carry people even if we don't think they deserve it. We can help someone even if they've not done anything to deserve it. And when you do that, same principle as when you pray for someone who's like an enemy, it's hard to be mad at them when you're praying for good things for them, praying for the Lord to bless them. So I would say, and I've literally had this happen in my life where there's been people that are, I'm a very social person, so I don't mind talking to anybody, but the very few people in my life that I'm like, I don't want to see that person, I have forced myself to go up and just say, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with? Because when I do that, back to your original question, to be a servant of Christ, it's me saying, what's more important right now is that I be Christ-like, not that I say, I don't like you, you rub me the wrong way, anything like that. I'm not saying go up to someone who wants to kill you and do that. I'm not saying, like, use some wisdom, obviously. But if there's just people who are just difficult, don't add to them being difficult by you, like, and I said this yesterday, it's easy to point out the unlovable qualities. but that's not what unites us. It's not us having a long history of love for one another. It's the fact that we have the love of Christ that unites us. So that automatically does not make them an unlovable person anymore. It doesn't make them a difficult person. And if I'm willing to serve them, to get down on my hands and feet and wash their feet, if I'm willing to serve that individual, to be humble and hospitable and not assume I'm better than them, they suddenly become that lovable person. Like, you suddenly begin to understand and you start to have that. So back to where I started, it works better to view this as, this is someone who needs my help. And if I can help carry them through this, I need to. And if it's within my capacity to do so, I should.
Yeah, great. Very good. Last one is joyful servants of Christ pray for one another. You just mentioned that in your last answer, praying for one another. And you gave an example in there of just asking people, how can I pray for you? This puts you on the spot a little bit, but how can we pray for you? So those listening, and myself included, how can we pray for you?
Okay. Specifically, I'll say it both personal and professional.
Okay. Yeah, that's
on
good.
the personal level, please, I would appreciate all the prayer for my marriage. I think if the enemy's going to try and hurt me in any capacity, it will be through my marriage. That's at the bedrock of everything in my life, is my marriage. And so if something happens there, I think everything in my life goes. So that is something that I value and I cherish and I try to protect with everything that I have. So I would appreciate any and every amount of prayer for my marriage, for my kids, just for me as a dad, to be a better dad, to be more patient, to be more present, to be more always just to increase, to be a better dad, a more loving dad, to set a good example for them, to be a better husband, a better example of what it looks like to be a husband, so that my wife, to be willing to sacrifice in every way for my wife, to care for my wife, to love for my wife. So that's probably what I would say personally, just on a very, good. They're my first assignment. That's how they taught that to me in seminary. And I loved that language. So I stick with that. They're my first assignment, my wife and kids.
Copy that.
On the professional side, endurance, stamina, just to be able to continue doing the work. It is very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be very, very overwhelming. With some of the pastor guys that my pastor mentor group that we meet with, they're like, "Oh, are you the one that does 10 services a day?" Because they tease us because of how many services we have. None of the churches in our area, maybe shy of the Rock, have more services than we do. And but they still, even on Sundays, I think they only have 3 services, if I'm not mistaken, but they have a lot more during the week. And but anyways, it can be very overwhelming and it can be daunting and kind of like, you see that, you stand before that, and it's overwhelming to feel like I've got to do this 5 times. I said to Colin,
I always think that I'm like, okay, don't think about it too much at 8 a.m. that I got 4
I said to Colin
this.
last night, he was at church. He's one of the guys at church. You probably recognize him. He's the guy that just worships so openly and just uninhibited. It's like he loves to worship. And we're leaving last night because he goes to every service. Like, he's with us all day. And so I said to him, I was like, Colin, thanks so much. And he was like, "Oh, Pastor, you did a great job." And it's very encouraging. And I said, "Thanks for sticking around all day long." And I said, "I don't know how you do it all day." And he's like, "Me? I don't know how you do it all day to preach the same thing." I was like, "Well, you kind of get used to it. You get into a flow and you get into a rhythm." But like, it makes me wonder how Dane still pulled it off at like 67 years old, something like that, when he left. Like, and we were doing 6 services then.
Saturday nights, and then
I'm 40 and doing 5 services. If we keep growing at this rate, though, we may need to bring back that Saturday service. So, but no, for the continued stamina in there, for that I continue to deepen my relationship with Christ, that I never allow any kind of arrogance or pride to settle in, any complacency to settle in, that I don't, just to keep me humble. That my focus be always first and foremost on the church, on the people, to fulfill the calling that the Lord has placed on my life, with integrity, with honesty, with humility, to lead the staff well, to develop further leaders for the church, to Yeah, is that enough? You need more?
That
Okay.
was good.
That's
wait,
what I
can you
was
say that
saying.
again?
Yeah.
Write it down. Thank you for sharing that.
No, absolutely.
I think those are good things. I would echo.
I
those too.
really need prayer for all those.
Yeah,
So
and I do too. And please pray for me for the similar and same things.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. It's like obviously my family in the personal side, just continue to keep us in prayer. I mean, even wisdom as parents really is a big thing. Just how do I guide? I want to continue to guide these boys in the Lord.
Yeah.
And just I love, and some of us, we have friends and family member who are not saved. And so it's, we want God to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
And then, I would echo the word for me. I was thinking too, was also endurance. Just, there's a lot before us. And so, last question. Well, no, I take that back. Sorry. 2 more questions. Last question for this point. Joyful servants of Christ, pray for one another. You started to mention this earlier, but how should we pray for difficult people, even our enemies? And you mentioned blessings that's a minute ago, a couple minutes ago, which is why I say this.
Say the question again.
How should we pray for difficult people?
Oh, okay.
Including our enemies. Is it, Lord, punish this person? I'm guessing that I know the answer is not fall down fire and brimstone.
Truth be told, there is such a thing as imprecatory psalms, which are for God to come and destroy our enemy.
Yeah.
Right. And there are psalms like that. I don't think that is descriptive of what we should be doing. I think it's a way of asking for God's justice, not our own,
right?
Not my judgment, but God's judgment. That God would expedite his judgment. I think that's
so
what
if your
that
neighbor's
is.
dog poops on your yard, you shouldn't pray that.
Don't call down lightning bolts to take out Bolt, Yeah. So no, I would say that God would give. I would pray if it's someone who's a very difficult person for me. I would ask first and foremost for the Lord to give me the grace to deal with that person, to give me understanding of, is there something I did? Did I hurt their feelings in some way? Was I disrespectful to them? Is there something that I need to apologize to them for, right? And if they're just intentionally, maybe they just got a chip on their shoulder against Christians, which we come across that all the time, then, pray for their well-being, just that God would soften their hearts, that they would do. It should never be Lord, let them sink into their bitterness all the more. Like, I don't think that that's necessary. I don't think that means that you need to hang out with them all the time and try and win them over. If they want nothing to do with you, I think that's okay for us to just say, all right, I'll respect that and leave you alone, right? Otherwise, I would just continue to pray for mercy and grace on our part to not let bitterness settle into our hearts over that. I mean, the Lord didn't become embittered with the people who put him on the cross. If of all things, he asked for them to be forgiven for what was going on. So I think we can follow that same example.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
The last one is our most controversial question of the day. Seriously.
Okay.
And we talked last night. Should we bring this up or not?
Yeah.
It's a very politically hot topic. And so the intention of talking about this just is not to get political commentary, what side's right, how should we vote, anything like that. But it's just been all over the news with ICE. So that's the immigration. Help me with it. Immigration,
customs
enforcement. Thank you. And there was a shooting in Minneapolis of a woman who interfered with ICE officers, and now that's sparked debate everywhere. What do you want to say to our people? Just as we have, there's so much tension in our culture with all of this right now.
I would say try and take a step back from everything. Pam every time I would come to her with an issue with my kids, she would tell me first thing, just take a deep breath, So I would encourage our people to do the same thing, because everyone is focused on one element of this entire scenario, whatever it is, whether you are pro these immigration policies or if you are against them.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do culturally, the way we were raised, what our families look like, and so forth. So wherever you land on that, try and take a giant step back from everything that is happening right now. take a step back, not just from the situation, but from the emotional high that comes with it. One person is hurt, and suddenly it now becomes about the hurt, not the fact that, this person did something wrong or the other person did something wrong. It's all about this emotional high, right? So take a step back even from that, because our emotions will cloud our judgment. Our emotions will cloud what we see.
Yeah.
If you're reading things online, if you're watching things online, try and get a very clear image of what's happening. I knew someone who would watch multiple news reports from both sides of the aisle for the sake of trying to fully understand what actually happened, because neither is telling the complete truth.
And you don't have the full every angle, so some of it's very difficult.
So try and gain a deeper understanding. And then once you have formulated a thought that has not been influenced by anybody else, go to Scripture. Go to some time in prayer and see. Then you will realize that the main issue at hand here, and I'm not talking about the issue with what was her name? Emily Good or something like that. Is that her name?
I don't know. I don't remember her last name. I think it was Emily.
It too. I had just looked it up earlier. Renee Good. Sorry, Renee. I said Emily. Renee Good. So anyways, so she I'm not talking about what's happening with her, but I'm just giving a for instance. If at the end of the day, what I realized was this one person, whoever it was, said this, and that's what sparked it all, then go back to go back and look at Scripture, and what does the Bible teach us about our language? That a soft word turns away wrath, that an angry person spews out garbage, like they just say things, that in anger we say things that we don't mean. Learn from that. That needs to be what our response should always be. To all of that, I would simply say the same thing I tell people when I officiate funerals. Be mindful that your family may respond very differently.
Yeah.
You're responding to the loss of your loved one a certain way. Certain other members of your family may respond differently. You may see sides of them you've never seen. And I think that's part of what we're seeing now in response to this. Some of our people have very, very deep-rooted emotional responses to what's going on, cultural responses to what's going on, political responses to what's going on, and all of those things, they don't jive very well.
Yeah.
So remember that at the end of the day, a life has been lost.
Yeah. So we can mourn.
And we need whether you are against or for, I don't care. Just focus on the fact that a life has been lost. There is a family who is grieving. I believe this woman was a mom, if I'm not mistaken. There are children who are grieving the loss of their mom. There are parents who are grieving the loss of their daughter. And that's just for her. What about for the officer who did the shooting? There's a man who is. People may disagree with this, but people deal with guilt after they've killed someone. Even if you're in law enforcement,
a target on him.
Exactly. The protests are all about him. His life is forever changed from this day forward. From last Wednesday, I think it was, right? His life is forever changed, and he's going to have that target on his back. He's going to carry the weight of this for the rest of his life. People are going to say things about him. There's going to be articles about this, news reports about this, and all kinds of stuff. People are going to say things nonstop. And as Christians, we have a responsibility to pray for all of those involved, to grieve the effects of sin in this world, to grieve the effects of anger and hatred in this world, to grieve the effects of. We have a responsibility to that. We also have a responsibility to effect change for the kingdom.
Right. Yes.
And so, as a result, we should not contribute to that. It's okay to have convictions about what's going on. That's fine, but we shouldn't contribute to that. I personally
contribute
to the hatred, like the hatred and the anger that's going on. I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying that. To the hatred and anger that's being pushed onto our culture now. We're being influenced. We're being encouraged. Go out and protest. Go out and riot. Go out and do this. That's not the. I personally don't believe that's
fire.
Correct.
It's like people are just butting heads.
We got to start putting buckets of water out, not buckets of gas here. And I understand that can feel to some people like, well, so we're saying we don't care? No, not at all. That's not what we're saying. We do care, but we want to help the healing process. We don't want to cause more destruction, more damage, more hurt, more pain.
Yeah.
We want to help. We want to be Christ to these people, right? We want to be encouraging and supporting, and we want to love on them, even if they feel like they're dealing with guilt or they're feeling with anger, whatever it is. We want to help.
I would echo. I mean, as we think about your final point, praying for one another, is challenge. I want to challenge everyone, just whether it's this topic or some other politically charged area, is to try to find compassion for the other side.
Right.
Because there's bad players in both sides. In the way that there's bad players on our team. In Christianity, there's bad players who make us look really bad, but that's not representative of everyone.
Correct.
Again, to your point, just there's so much emotional charge and people react and don't think rationally because it turns into rage and cursing and other things instead of civil conversations. So it's like, can you take some time just to have a little bit of compassion? Because on one side they're interfering, and that's causing a lot of concern and fear. On another side, they're doing the same kind of thing, but it's from different angles. I mentioned last night, the level of aggression with some of these officers. It reminded me of, I was thinking of the Redcoats, like during the Revolutionary War time. It's citizens, citizens are intimidated. U.S. citizens are intimidated by some of these people. And so have some compassion for that, just for these homes, whether or not that fear is rational in every situation. There's people that are afraid right now. And then there's innocent officers and innocent ICE members even that are being targeted and attacked, who they're just trying to serve their country. They're trying to do what's right. So can we have some compassion, just that there's so much rage and hate for one another that's escalating into violence and
a lot of this comes back to what we talked about earlier. We want to enact our justice. So again, to your point, both sides believe they're doing what they either have been told or taught is the right thing. These officers are, to your point, they're doing a job, right? They're doing what they have been trained and taught to do and so forth because they've been told these are the policies we have. These people have broken the law and so forth. So they believe they're doing the right thing. Then you've got the people on the other side who say you don't know anything about their history, that they've come here to escape so and so and they've done this and it's okay. I'm hearing everything that you're saying, but the point is you're no longer talking about the same thing. So you're trying to enact justice over something that does not match, and it's just creating further and further animosity. And we have to be mindful of it because exactly, I think you worded it well. Have compassion and take a moment, take a breather. Do not respond in an angry, emotional state. Take a moment to just stop and pray and ask for God's justice and his mercy in all of this. Ask him to soften your heart before you even speak, before you act, before you say anything, so that because there are people who are hurting on all these and any side that you take. There are people who are angry. There are people who are hurting. There are people who are indifferent. There are people who don't know what's going on, right? And we have to traverse that very carefully. Very, very carefully. So,
and some of you may not be satisfied with the conversation or the answers we give, but we really want to challenge you to think biblically about this. And if you want to come to a political stance, one side, yes, have a political basis, or have a biblical basis as you think through all these things. But the biggest thing, we're not here to give political commentary or guide how you're going to vote at this time. We want you to be thinking about how can I practice the compassion? How can you love one another, knowing that we have neighbors, we have people in our church, we have all types of people in our life who are coming from different perspectives in this area. How can we still move towards unity and love one another? How do you still carry one another, even if they disagree with you in that topic? That's kind of our emphasis.
We're glad to sit and chat with you at any time. If anybody would ever want to sit and talk with us, we're glad to talk.
Well, thank you for that. God bless you all. We hope that you have a great week, and we hope you continue to listen, and we look forward to seeing you at our upcoming services. It's almost Easter. We planned that.
It is. We started planning Easter this morning.
So, but we'll see you.
Oh, I'm tired already.
We'll see you this next week. God bless.
Bye-bye.